So we're going to get started. Thank you all for being here. Before we get started, I do want to let everyone know we are going to be recording this session today just for folks that were not able to make it. You are here for the FLI at Columbia webinar 101. So today we're going to talk a little bit about, or actually we'll get into that in a second, but let me introduce myself and the folks that are here. We have some upperclassmen here with us today. My name is Destiny Machin, she, her pronouns. I'm the program director of FLI at Columbia. Fun fact, I was a FLI student myself, SEAS 2019. That's a little bit about me. I'll pass it on to Hannah.
Hi, all. I'm Hannah. I'm on the MSOP committee, and I'm your identity-based programming coordinator this year. And I'll pass it off to Diana.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diana. I'm a rising senior in Columbia College studying neuroscience.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ananya. I'm studying political science and urban studies. I'm a rising junior, and I'm a representative on the FLI Advisory Board.
All right. So we'll keep things going. If you have questions during the chat, definitely feel free to add some things in the chat. Hannah will be adding some links that are helpful throughout the PowerPoint as we discuss different resources and things to keep in mind. But that being said, we will also have a Q&A at the end of the session. So any of your larger, bigger questions, you can definitely save for the end as well. All right. So we're going to get started here. So the agenda for today, welcome and introductions. We're going to talk about what is FLI. We'll talk very briefly about FLI supports. We'll get into more of that once you guys get on campus. The bulk of the session is thinking about preparing for move-in and how, transitioning to being on campus. Again, we'll have a Q&A session, and then we'll close out with some helpful dates to keep in mind and how to get connected and all that fun stuff. So what is FLI? So FLI, which is pronounced as FLI, acronym for first gen and or low income students. FLI is kind of a catch-all, so you don't have to be both first gen and low income to identify as FLI. You can be one or both of those identities. And then also a note, some people also use the acronym FGLI. Our office likes to use FLI, but identify yourself however you want to. So then we have here who is considered first gen, and we really do, I think across multicultural affairs as a whole, we do very much approach all of this as kind of self-identify. So at Columbia, a first gen college student is defined as a student whose parent or guardian did not receive a 4-year U.S. bachelor's degree or completed a 4-year U.S. bachelor's degree later in life. So we have FLI students who, had parents that got their degree in other countries and really don't have the footing of what it is to be in a U.S. college, or maybe went to kind of the community college route and got their associates and didn't kind of get the same type of traditional, experience you would get at Columbia. And honestly, everything in between. So it is very much kind of a self-prescribed identity. And then who is considered low income? I think for a lot of the different resources that we provide, Columbia College identifies it as students who have $0 or low parent contribution and or who identify as coming from a less resource community. So again, very kind of, malleable, kind of as you see fit. I will say there are certain income restrictions or eligibility restrictions for some resources that we'll talk about today, but otherwise, FLI is kind of as you see it. Some FLI supports. So we have FLI at Columbia, which is the office that I oversee within multicultural affairs. It's really focusing on the student experience and support outside of the classroom. And this is complemented with first and family programs. You may have heard this. If you haven't, you'll definitely hear more about first and family during NSOP. And that's overseen by the Center for Student Advising. It's really meant to be a lot more focused on the academic pieces, professional development, and cultural enrichment. So we really kind of see FLI supports as the combination of the two. And our offices work, closely together to kind of encompass the entire FLI experience for students. So FLI Columbia, what do we do? There's 4 main pillars that we have, but there's so much that kind of goes underneath that. We help students navigate campus resources. So as I'm sure a lot of you, know coming into Columbia and doing your research on Columbia, there's so many resources on sometimes. So our office really sets out to make it to be able to navigate and figure out, I should go to this office for this thing, or this resource I can, use for this thing. We also do a lot of community building. So we have a bunch of programs, which I'll share a little bit more about, really focused on kind of building the community around the FLI identity. I know a lot of folks in high school maybe don't have the same sense of community around the FLI identity. And then in college, it feels a little bit more apparent. And so we try to build and create spaces for students to find community under that. Next up, we have Advocate for FLI Student Concerns. So actually in the upper left-hand corner here, you see our FLI Advisory Board. Really just thinking about what are the needs of FLI students, what are offices, or what are, connections with offices that we can have to better tailor resources for students, or keep FLI students in mind as they create, policies and things like that. And then lastly, increasing campus awareness. So just more folks are aware of what it is to be FLI, and how to be FLI friendly, and kind of all of that stuff. So that's a little bit about the office. I'll share a little bit more during NSOP when you're here for orientation week. But beyond our office, as I mentioned, we have first and family programs, we have FLI at Columbia, but also these are all of the different or not all of them, there's more than this. These are a bunch of different offices around campus that we work with, and that we, tailor specific FLI resources for our students. So we have Alice Health Promotions, we have Counseling and Psychological Services, Sexual Violence Response, Undergrad Research and Fellowships, Undergraduate Global Engagement, Financial Aid, of course, it's a big one for us, Center for Career Education, Admissions, and the Alumni Relations Office. So when we think about supporting FLI students through, it's really thinking about kind of the larger network of, who's in your corner and who you can go to for resources. So we're going to kind of pivot over to what to expect, I guess, from now until you get onto campus, and really just helping you prepare for, move in and being on campus and coming to Columbia and all those fun things. We put together the summer checklist from upperclassmen. So keep an eye out on your countdown to Columbia. And Hannah's going to be dropping links as we talk a little bit more about these things, so you guys can click and save and do what you must. But Countdown to Columbia is going to share with you everything that you need for, getting registered, and, making sure when your move-in day is, other webinars like we're doing today, things like that. So that's going to be your go-to. I'm sure you've gotten plenty of emails from Countdown to Columbia at this point, and probably will get more. Other things, check your financial aid award package. So it's really important to make sure that, you're aware of where you're at. You definitely want to start thinking about, getting a better understanding of your award package. The summer is a great time to have these conversations with financial aid of I'm not sure what this means, or I'm not sure what my expectations here are. And they have a bunch of office hours, which we're actually going to talk about a little bit later. But it's always good just to make sure everything's kind of in the clear. Other things, it might be a little too early, but I think it's a good time to kind of explore on-campus jobs while you have some downtime. So, I think a lot of work study jobs and also casual jobs as well, they do get very competitive as we get closer to the start of the year. We'll also talk more about kind of how to navigate both of those things. But there's some links in the chat for you guys to start looking around. Review outside scholarship policies. So if anyone has um, a outside scholarship beyond their financial aid provided by Columbia or their Pell Grant, there are certain policies that you have, and again, this could be a conversation with financial aid about how that all gets packaged in. Other things, this is all very financial. Plan for your e-bill and explore payment options. So if you do have an expected cost, it will pop up on your financial aid portal. There are ways to set up payment options as well. And it doesn't all have to be like all up off the bat. So for most FLI students, this will look like the student contribution coming into the school year. Or if there's any kind of discrepancies, you can talk to financial aid about what this looks like, where it's coming from, and what to do about it. Other than that, considering your health insurance options, which I think we'll talk a little bit more about later as well. There's the Columbia Student Health Insurance Plan, and then also you can waive your rights to signing up for Columbia's health insurance if you have a comparable insurance from your hometown. So you're able to sign up for waivers for that, and we'll talk a little bit about that later as well. And then the last one, and such a hidden gem, is shipping items ahead of time if you can. So if you're already packing your boxes, I think the link just went in the chat. It's called mail-in package pre-delivery. And essentially you'll send it and they will actually literally move it into your dorm for you. So it's such a hack. But these are some things to keep in mind for the summer. And I'm going to pass it over to, I think, Ananya. Yes, to talk through hidden costs.
Yes, so hidden costs, definitely the first thing is traveling to and from the airport. I think you'll quickly realize once you come here and move to New York City, some of you might be from New York City, everything's more expensive in New York City, especially Uber and Lyfts. And so, like Destiny just mentioned, that like shipping to your room situation is the best course of action. And I would highly suggest, like, as an upperclassman, take advantage of that as much as you can and try to bring like on yourself when you actually move in as little as possible so that you can consider things like public transport, like the subway, like the train, or like the bus. Actually, from LaGuardia, if you're flying into there, there's a straight bus. It's the M60. It'll also become your best friend as you potentially travel home, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're coming from JFK, that's a little bit farther. So just keep in mind that Ubers and Lyfts can get very costly, especially depending on what time your flight is. If it's late at night, you can see things up to like $100 sometimes. So just keep that in mind that that's coming. And then all incoming first-year students have a minimum student contribution of $2,400 as their financial aid award. So just make sure that you look very closely at your aid letter. And my go-to is always to just email randomly and reintroduce myself to the financial aid office many, many times in emails, and they always respond very nicely and will walk you through anything. So at any point in your Columbia journey and career, if you have a question, just email and you'll be able to get an answer and help on figuring that out and the best way to do that for yourself. So there's also the Dean Students Assistance Fund, which I did not know about when I came to Columbia at all, and it was through FLI upperclassmen that I learned about this. But again, send an email to financial aid if you're curious once you get on campus. And this can be for things like winter clothes, your laptop breaks, your headphones break, there's an emergency in your family, you have to travel home, you have an unexpected health cost. Columbia can really help you out with this, and they've helped out myself and many of my friends that are FLI with this fund. So again, sending an email is your best friend, and they're here to help you. And then another huge thing that I did not think about until I came to Columbia was health insurance and explore the university's health insurance requirements. And Hannah just dropped a great link in the chat to help you guys figure that out. But again, you never know what's going to happen. And so just make sure that you're on top of that. And Columbia has a bunch of requirements around it. So if you have any questions, again, just send an email and somebody will respond and help you really kindly. And I think I'll pass it to Diana.
Hi guys, so I'll be talking about upperclassmen tips and tricks. So as you can see, we got four of these here for you today. So our first one is talking about connecting with your roommate ahead of time to discuss expectations, splitting costs for shared spaces, etc. For some of you, this might be your first time sharing a room with someone. For others, it might not. But either way, it's great to go ahead and just have that conversation pretty early on. That way you guys are pretty clear about what to do, especially in regards to boundaries. The second one has to do with eco-reps, and eco-reps hosts a green sale where gently used common items from former students are sold at a reduced price. This was something that I also heard about from my own upperclassmen. And people are able to get like mini fridges for pretty cheap, which I think is a common thing. There's also books sometimes, so you can be on the look for those. The third one is to explore options for free and or cheaper course materials. Here at Columbia, we have the FLI Lending Library, which is located inside of Butler. And we also have textbooks from upperclassmen, etc. So for courses, especially for like incoming freshmen into Columbia College, if you need books for like literature humanities or contemporary civilizations, which are each year-long courses, one that you'll take in your freshman year, one that you'll take in your sophomore year, we have a lot of those books in the library. So you can save yourself money by checking these out of the library instead of buying copies on your own. And then lastly, just in general, ask for help and connect with FLI student organizations. There's a lot of organizations here on campus. Some of you guys might be Questbridge scholars, so we have a club for that. And then I was also recently a part of a club called Fly Network. And so yeah, go ahead and check us out.
So given the size of our group today, I was originally going to do breakout questions, but we'll kind of do a larger group. Maybe as folks are thinking of their questions, for our upperclassmen, Ananya and Diana, and maybe you too, Hannah, I'm curious, of what's something that you wish you would have known ahead of getting to campus. I know we discussed a lot, but I'm sure there's other things.
I think this one's kind of a silly one, but in my case, like I have older siblings, but they stayed local. They went to community college. So for me to go, my home state is Oregon, so I'm from the West Coast for anyone out there. Um, wish I would have known how important a mattress topper is. It's one of those things that I never thought about. But I would recommend a mattress topper, especially if you don't like harder surfaces to sleep on.
Yeah, I think I wish I had known more about many things, but I think especially like the eco rep sale, like we mentioned, that's a great resource when I think it's like in the first week that you guys are there. Be prepared for like crazy lines and to get there ahead of time. And there'll be all this information on Instagram to kind of help you through that. But things like your fridge that you might be stressed about cost. I know my family was. Something like all your core books, which can just be a huge cost. And I know people like to have their own copies kind of wait to see like what you can maybe find at the sale or like the used bookstores like near campus and then go from there about buying new copies or like trying to use the Fly library, which is also super helpful. But kind of try to see and feel it out. And then another thing I wish I had known about was the federal work study jobs that are available. I didn't really get a job until my second semester of freshman year, and I was really stressed for about money to begin with. But once I got a job and checked out the portal and saw what was available, everything kind of clicked, and I was able to get my footing at Columbia and be able to like enjoy life in New York City. So definitely think about that before you come and check out the portal that was shared and just make a plan for how you want to save, et cetera, because that'll make all the difference once you come.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say that there's a lot of eco-reps programming during NSOP week during our orientation program. They're gonna do like a welcome session and then they have a tour and then they'll have the green sale. So there's like multiple opportunities for you to go in and meet like the board of eco-reps or to like check in with what they're doing and then they'll host things throughout the year too. But during orientation week, you'll have 3 opportunities to like go and scope it out.
Awesome. All right. Thank you all for sharing. I see we do have some questions in the chat. So I'll read out the first one. If I need financial support with the Columbia Health Insurance Plan, do I enroll in the plan first, then email the financial aid office for help to raise the grant to cover the costs? So you shouldn't need, so essentially what happens is if you are, and this is where like the specifics around, I guess, how you identify as low income in Columbia's kind of standards. If you have a $0 or less expected parent cost, then when you enroll in the Columbia Health Insurance Plan, the grant will be applied after. If you want, you can always double check before you do it with financial aid. They have office hours, they're virtual, they're in person. Also have a few sessions. There was just one earlier today. There's a few sessions between now and the start of classes as well. So hopefully that gives some context for that. Ananya or Diana, did either of you end up kind of enrolling in the Columbia program or no?
I do have Columbia insurance, and I recently had to go through like using it really a lot this last semester. But in terms of like the financial side of it, I don't really remember. I say like it did show up on like my student like financial aid part, and my family paid the parent contribution, but I can't speak to like raising the costs or something.
Yeah. So usually what it is financial aid kind of has their process for very aware that FLI students usually need the additional grant. So it should be a pretty seamless process. But again, like if you are someone who's like nervous of making decisions and being on the hook for anything, I suggest honestly just like, clarifying with them, especially because financial aid is such a specific situation. It's very individual. If you want, then you could definitely reach out. No question is a dumb question at all. But you should be good. All right, next question. Do you know if family needs to register for helping students move in and for family orientation? That may be a good question. Janet, I don't know if you're still on the line.
What was the question?
Sorry. Do you know if family needs to register for helping students move in and for family orientation? I'm thinking they shouldn't, but I'm not sure of the specifics yet. Do you know, Janet?
So for move-in, usually you'll get that information if it is required, for like to help you move in on move-in day. That should come through like Countdown to Columbia, because that applies to like everyone. You do need to register for family orientation. So those emails will really go out in a couple of weeks. So just make sure that if you know that your family plans on attending those sessions, and those typically will happen the day of move-in and then usually the Monday following. Yeah, they usually request registration just because they just want to make sure that they have enough space for everyone who would be attending those. But those should also come through Countdown to Columbia as well.
All right, so the next one, it says, I've heard that the be overwhelming at times. What is the best way to tackle it?
I can speak on this like a little bit just because I have just finished taking Lit Hum. I'm an incoming sophomore. I don't think I said that in my intro, but I loved my Lit Hum class, and I think a big part of it was because me and my classmates are all really close. And I think the structure of the class is really dependent on your teacher. Some of the professors don't do exams, some of them do exams, some of them will have really low stakes papers. My class was paper heavy, and then the exam was not worth as much of our grade. Um, so because you can't control how your teacher per semester is gonna run the class, I think what's like within your control is like how much you engage with the people in your class, and that way you always know that you have somebody there who can take notes for you if you're not feeling well, or who can come do like a essay writing session with you, or like you always have another resource with someone who is like on your level, because you are it's like not always possible to like get a slot in office hours, like during final season, like people are going to be like booking your professor's office hours up. So I think like when you have close connections with like everybody in the class, and I feel like this goes beyond Lit Hum, but like especially in a seminar style class, like you get to make new friends, but then you also have like a really good support system for the class.
Yeah, and just another quick thing is that the class I remember was just so overwhelming at first because especially you're reading things like the Iliad and the Odyssey to begin with I just had no exposure to ancient Greek culture before Columbia, and then you come and you have like a ton of exposure really quickly. And some of those the content of those books can just be challenging. So I would highly suggest trying to talk through it with friends. Those first couple days in NSOP or like in your dorm, in your suite, whatever it ends up being, and that kind of makes a world of difference. And then also going to office hours as early as possible. Almost every professor will have office hours, especially for Lit Hum, because it's a freshman class. And so don't be afraid to just go with your book and ask a question. No question is a stupid question, truly, in Lit Hum. And don't be afraid to speak up in class and ask a question. And a lot of it is roundtable discussion, which was super daunting for me because I just was not exposed to that in the high school that I had. And so just don't be afraid to contribute what you think about the book. And sometimes it can be scary with like these really dense texts, but just know that you've read it just like everyone else has. And as long as you stay on top of your reading, do not put it off, do not procrastinate, which will come up later in the semester. You will be okay. And so my biggest advice would be go to office hours early, stay on top of the reading, and just don't be afraid to contribute in class, and it all works out.
Oh, I have one more final thing off of what you said. Most professors know that you're not reading every single word of every single chapter. So if you are feeling like it's a busy week, don't be afraid to ask them, like, okay, hypothetically, if I had to pick like 3 out of the 10 chapters you assign me, like what do I need to absolutely know? And most of the professors, especially if you have a good relationship with them, coming in from like the first two works that you read, because they're not that difficult, or they're not as extensive as like the Aeneid. Um, when you get to those denser texts and you're like, can you give me like places to hone in on? They're likely to help you out with that.
All right. I think let's go to the next question. How early can you apply for a work study job? My understanding was you had to apply in person, and I am coming in out of state. Does anyone here want to share?
I don't remember there being like an in-person application component, but I could be wrong. It could have changed. I'm not 100% sure. Because I also went through it like the second semester when I was already on campus. But I would say the biggest thing is just to look through the portal and kind of know what are some options. Like it ranges from everything from being like Rory the lion, the mascot at games, to like being a research assistant for different professors and different centers on campus. So would say the biggest thing is just try and look through the portal and see what your options could be. And then sometimes there's ways to just reach out. There's like an email for the professor, that would be it, or like the person who's the coordinator for whatever program that they're looking for a work study student for, and just email and see what they say. And you could totally ask them that question of like, do you think I need to be in person to apply? Or here's my information. Just let me know what you're thinking, just so you establish a connection in what you're interested in. And even if it doesn't work out for the first semester, there's a strong potential that it would work out the second semester, or you've already made a connection on campus that you can follow up on. So that would be my biggest advice for work study. And especially because you're not in competition with any other students for that, right? That's just for the students who are eligible for federal work study. So it's like a great go-to to get an early footing, an early job.
Yeah, I think to add more context to that too, so at this point, most packages should already have whether you're having a work study allotment or not. And if you don't see it, but you expect to see it, again, financial aid is your best friend. They're really friendly. There's some great folks in that office too. Um, but once you have that allotment, then you should be able to sign into that work study portal. So if you don't have access to the portal, then take a look at your, your award package and maybe talk through with financial aid. But from there, you can start looking. Um, I don't think from what I know, I don't think there are any jobs that are all just like apply in person. you can probably start applying. Certain jobs will already be posted ahead of the semester. Others will kind of just come up as they come up. And I guess something to expect is even if you are able to start applying now, maybe you won't get, hear more like next steps until the first week of classes or sometimes a little bit later. So I don't think it hurts to start early if you're curious. I learned my first semester things get snatched up quickly, or at least that was my experience. So I always think the earlier the better, and just to get familiar with the website. For those of you that don't have work study, also going on Lionshare, that's that second link that was in there for casual jobs, getting set up with your profile. There's employers on campus and all of that. And it's just really kind of familiarizing yourself with the process. So that way, when you're actually looking for your next stop, your job, you're not feeling overwhelmed by all these new components. So that's my suggestion there. We'll go to the next one. Thank you to the panel. Could you say what your idea of a reasonable ballpark for setting up a dorm room can be? Is $400 possible?
I feel like $400 is possible. It depends on like what kind of room you want and also can afford. So I feel like as long as you have basics, like make sure you have comfortable bedding because sleep is important. So as long as you feel comfortable sleeping, because here at Columbia they provide you with like a mattress. It has kind of like a plastic cover, but that's it. Everything else is like you have a chair for your desk and you have like a wardrobe, but everything else is up to you. In my own experience, my room was something that started off very bare. It was just my bed. And then over time, as I met people, as I like got cards, I would put them up on my wall. So it could be a situation like that. But I think more than anything, at least make sure that it's comfortable at a minimum. But I think 400 is good enough.
One other quick note is don't overpack. I was an overpacker and I thought I needed to bring everything I own with me to college. I, in fact, did not need to do that. And it just builds up because, like Diana said, you like collect things throughout the year. You go out with your friends and you make memories. Like you go to different museums and you have things to hang on your wall. So save place for that as much as possible.
I see it. Thank you. I also have a question about how the NSOP schedule will look like with things like placement tests and registering for classes. Hannah, do you have some insight on that potentially?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. So, NSOP, the first 2 days, like the Monday and the Tuesday that you're on campus, are going to be your immersion experiences. There's not going to be any placement tests or registering for classes. Like you're going to be off campus the whole day. Then Wednesday, you have a lot of required programming, like SVR and Under One Roof and like these campus things that you just have to do before you can start like your official Columbia journey. And then the best days to sign up for like placement tests are on Thursday and Friday. I think all students will register on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. I think everybody gets their different time then, and you shouldn't have much other like NSOP, like required NSOP programming to schedule around because like we know that everyone has a different registration time, so we can't really put anything in that block. So NSOP will be like very front heavy, and then towards the back you can get towards the more academic or um like the more like minute detail things where you have um like assigned places to be and assigned times to be on your like for your specific requirements or your specific majors and things like that. Those will be on Thursday and Friday.
In regards to placement tests, I took one my NSOP year. I took it for Japanese language, and I think I would recommend heavy to look into your department. So I know I had some friends who also tested out with things like they tested with the chemistry department. So look at their pages because they might have like different dates, or you might have to reach out to like the department head. So I would definitely just look into the details depending on whose placement test you want to take.
So the next question, and hopefully that answered everything. Do you have any advice for an incoming transfer student, especially when it comes to integrating socially? One thing I will share just straight off the bat, which I can't believe I didn't mention earlier, but you'll hear this in our different NSOP programs that we have for FLI students. is something called the Columbia Mentoring Initiative. So let me try and find a link, but I guess in the meantime, so CMI, the Columbia Mentoring Initiative, we love acronyms at Columbia, is an intergenerational mentoring program, but also a very community-based program as well, where we match incoming students, whether they be transfers or first years, um, with upperclassmen mentors who kind of help mentees kind of navigate what the campus community looks like. We have 9 different identity-based family trees. So Asian, Black, disability, Indigenous, international, Latinx, um, LGBTQ, Middle Eastern, North African, and mixed. So there's a lot of different family trees to join. And really, a lot of the students that join as mentees get the benefits of a one-on-one mentor, but then also you have your family tree community, but then also we do some CMI-wide programming. And I think it's a really easy way to kind of get tuned into a community, and definitely a community based around support. So both like the social aspect, but also the supportive aspect. So I just want to plug that out there. I'll grab a link, but does anyone else want to share a little bit more about socially integrating?
Clubs. I cannot stress this enough, whether it be as a first year or a transfer, like I would really recommend clubs. Just because it's like it gives you one, you can go find your interest, but it also like puts you in contact with people who might be of the similar interest. And then, everyone who might go to a club doesn't necessarily mean like they're the same major. So I'd say clubs. And then the other thing I would stress is, maybe if there's anyone that you live with, whether it be like you live in a suite or you live in like corridor housing and you run into someone, I would just go ahead and strike up conversation with anyone who you think you could be friends with. That ended up happening to me my sophomore year. There was this 2 girls that lived next to me, and one of them became my best friend down the line. So I would recommend clubs and talking to people in your housing.
One more thing I'll add is like the beautiful thing about the core curriculum is typically you're with the same like 20 people for a whole year. And like Hannah said, I had the same situation in my lit hum. I made some really good friends. I had the same thing this year in my CC, made really good friends. And it's just like depending on what hour your class is, maybe you ask to go get lunch with whoever's sitting next to you, and you kind of develop this routine with all of them, and you really do learn so much about them through the way they view all of these different books and texts you read. So definitely lean into that, because that was how I made a lot of friends freshman year and sophomore year. And it just exposes you to different majors, different people. I am not athletic, but I met many athletes through that. So, you just get exposed to all different kinds of people and you get to make friends. And so definitely lean into your classes. And that's a really unique thing about Columbia. So be excited for that.
I also want to say on clubs, when people say that they're in a club, it's hard to know whether they mean like a pre-professional club or like something they're just doing for fun, and it gets really stressful. And like I think pursue everything that you want to pursue and that you're excited about professionally and academically, and like you can do all of these like pre-law societies or like mock trial things that'll really help you with your future career. But also if you I think have the space for it, it's so worth it to just do one that is purely just for fun. That like that you're not there's no like edge of competition, or like in the back of your head you're anxious about like some future um like networking thing that you're gonna have to do. Like there's this time and a place for that, and it's amazing like the amount of opportunities that you'll encounter like that on campus. But also like you could do musical theater, you can like join like an art club, things like that. And I think it is a subconscious shift in the way that you approach the people that you meet in those clubs. Not to say you can't meet your best friend at like a pre-law society meeting, just that like I don't want to do musical theater, but I joined musical theater and it was really fun. And I met a lot of cool people like that.
Last thing I'll share on clubs. There's like over 300 different clubs to join. I also think too, I see this a lot with my students, that they find a club and they stick with it all 4 years. You can join in and out of all these different clubs whenever you want. I mean, obviously, if you have a board position and responsibilities, and there's responsibilities behind that. But outside of that, there's so much to explore. Um, yeah, there's just hundreds of clubs. So let me see the next one. Okay, I think the next two questions are likely from international students. So they're, when do students begin to apply for a US bank account? And then also as an international student, when do I expect to receive information regarding startup grants? So I will say, I know Janet's here. I don't know if she wants to share a little bit, but there will be international webinars. I think that's a little bit more geared towards that wheelhouse. I think Thursday morning and afternoon. But Janet, I don't know if you have any insight on either of those questions.
Yeah, there will definitely be two sessions specifically for international students on Thursday, the 17th at 1 p.m. and 7 a.m. EDT. In terms of just like short answers for in terms of the US bank account, we will be sending out like a cell phone and banking guide to all of our international students. We can't really like recommend a specific bank, so it's just a list of all of the institutions that are like walking distance from Columbia. And it also will have like a short list of like documents or things that you might need to bring with you to set up a bank account. I think essentially once you arrive to campus and you have all your docs, you can set up your account. And then in terms of startup grants, I am not sure what that is. I don't know if that's something that you've received from like your specific program or like school. But if you have like a specific grant name, you should reach out to the program or office that like oversees that specific grant.
Also more to come on Thursday, of course, as well for those two sessions for international students. The next question is, what kind of grants are available? Examples, professional clothing, emergency, etc.
In regards to the clothing, I know that we have the clothing closet, and I believe that's part of like the Career Education Center or the Center for Career Education. And I think they're housed in Uris, fifth floor. I'm not sure, but they have a clothing closet, or basically you can just borrow clothes from them, and like it's clothes at ranging anything from like internship interviews, so stuff like that, professional clothing. An emergency, we mentioned like the Dean's Emergency Fund or Dean's Assistant Fund, something like that. But yeah, it's kind of like a no questions asked type thing where you're like, hi, this happened, and then they will help you out the best that they can.
Also, in addition to that as well, thinking about clothing, so there's also part of the Dean's Student Assistance Fund. There's a yearly, I guess it would be like an additional grant. Not really a grant. They do have money to give for winter coats. So for those of you that are maybe coming from warmer climates. I know we have a lot of California folks that come to New York and they're like, what is this weather? So there's also a stipend of up to $200 for folks that need to buy clothing. They don't check any receipts or anything. So it's, it's a really nice resource, and I'll just put it that way. And then outside of that, let's see, what's the other one? Emergency grants. Those are, again, all through the Dean Student Assistance Fund. There are very specific too, especially for the more like emergency things of like, what do you need? Or if it's like a medical bill, like making sure that it's not a recurring medical bill and it's really kind of an emergency medical bill. So DSAF, the Dean Student Assistance Fund, you are able to talk with a financial aid representative to really tease out like, here's my situation. What are the different things that I can explore? So hopefully that helps a little bit more. It is really kind of case by case. All right. Did anyone have a single dorm freshman year? Can you share your experience?
I did have a single in Wallach, which is the best freshman dorm. And it was really great for me. I'm social, but I recharge alone. So I needed really to not be around anybody. But I do think it's pretty manageable to invite like one or two people over to hang out. Like there's not that much space, but you can definitely have like two people sitting on the bed and one person at the desk, and you can just like hang out that way. But if I wanted to spend time with more people, I would go to like Riverside Park, or I find other spots on campus, and it actually helped me discover more third spaces or like free spaces that I could be, because I physically didn't have enough space to accommodate a group of 5 people in my room. But I think everything is like, you don't need as much as you think you need, so the space ends up not as full as you would anticipate. Although I am an overpacker, so at first it was looking a little intense, but eventually we got there. We cleared out what we didn't need.
I was in Hartley my freshman year. They changed it, so I don't think freshmen are in Hartley anymore. But I had my own room. I grew up my whole life sharing a room with my two sisters, so I was super stoked to have my own place. I think experience-wise, like Hannah said, like space is kind of small. Again, if you bring a ton of things, it's gonna feel even smaller. But this is New York, so there's not a ton of space to begin with. But I really liked it. I think at first it was a little lonely even because I was so used to sharing a room, but I think it was definitely appreciated just because it did give me like a sense of privacy where it's like I could go out, talk to people, but then come back and recharge.
Yeah, I was also in Wallach, which I also think is the best freshman dorm. I was on floor 9, shout out Wallach 9. But I made a lot of great friends there, and I think I'm a huge proponent of John Jay and Wallach because so many of the floors are all singles, and sometimes there's a couple doubles on the floor, etc. But if you're a social person, you'll really bond with your floor and try to lean into like those first few weeks when your RA has programming. Just get to know the people on your floor. You're going to be seeing them all the time in the elevator. You're going to be seeing them at floor meetings. You're just going to be seeing them leaving, walking to class, walking to the lounge. So they really do become some good friends you can have. And I'm still very close to the people I met in my floor, Wallach 9, freshman year. So I would say that's a big thing. Even if you're just bored or you feel alone, just go hang out in the lounge on your floor, and that can make a world of difference. And you make friends that way. Maybe have a cooking night, et cetera, et cetera. So I actually absolutely loved single life, and you'll miss it sophomore year because you might not be in a single. So really enjoy it while you have it.
I'm just gonna double click on everything that was said because I feel very similarly. I had a single my freshman year, so I was in John Jay 12. It was great. But anyways, I know we are at 2. Oh my gosh. Okay, what to expect next? Thank you all for your questions. I think we got through everything. And also there's more space for you all to connect still with us and during NSOP. Speaking of, we have various different FLI NSOP sessions that you can expect from us. So we have a FLI welcome, which is kind of a community builder, like, just having students join us at the beginning of the week. We'll have another FLI financial aid session on that Friday. Not confirmed yet, but we are hoping to have a FLI library tour just so you can see the resource and upperclassmen can help you and you can learn a little bit more about that. We'll have an intro to FLI, which will be a little bit more in depth about the supports in the FLI at Columbia office. And then we'll have a FLI mixer wrapping up the end of NSOP on Sunday. These are all student-based, so it's really first years and upperclassmen just getting to talk and get to know each other. And then through the academic year, we have so many different types of programs, which for the sake of time, I'll elaborate on at a next NSOP event. But otherwise, you can get connected with us through our FLI at Columbia mailing list. I send bi-weekly newsletters, and also you'll have all these links to resources and office hours with me if you need help navigating. So you can scan the QR code there if you are interested in joining. And otherwise, thank you all so much for coming, and we will see you on campus very, very soon.